Ladies and gentlemen, in the grand theater of global politics, few relationships have captured as much attention as that between former U.S. President Donald Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Two powerful leaders, both known for their assertive personalities, strong nationalism, and unyielding charisma, yet behind the smiles, handshakes, and headlines lies a deeper question. Did Trump really pressure Modi? To understand this, we must go beyond the photo ops and public statements. The huge S-India dynamic under Trump was not merely about diplomacy. It was about dominance, negotiation, and strategy. Trump's America First often collided with Modi's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India. Each wanted the upper hand, but both understood the importance of partnership. Trump admired Modi's mass appeal and India's economic rise, yet he also demanded concessions on trade, defense, and foreign alignment. From tariffs on Indian goods to pressure over oil imports from Iran, Trump's tactics were clear. He played hardball. But Modi was no ordinary leader to bow under pressure. Instead, he countered with patience, diplomacy, and strategic silence, turning challenges into opportunities. This wasn't a story of intimidation. It was a story of two powerful nations asserting their sovereignty, learning to respect each other's boundaries while strengthening their global alliance. The tension, the negotiation, and the balance of pride, that is the real story behind the headlines. When we talk about global leadership in the 21st century, few figures have commanded as much attention and influence as Donald Trump and Narendra Modi. Both men are products of strong nationalist movements. Both emerged as political outsiders who defied traditional establishments, and both mastered the art of communication. Direct, emotional, and unapologetically patriotic. But when these two titans came face to face, the world witnessed not just camaraderie, but a subtle power struggle rooted in vision, pride, and the politics of influence. Donald Trump entered the White House with a businessman's mindset. Every handshake, every summit, every foreign visit was seen through the lens of negotiation and deal-making. For him, global diplomacy was not about ideology. It was about leverage. He valued allies, but only those who delivered tangible benefits to America first. In contrast, Narendra Modi, rising from humble beginnings to the highest office in India, had a different worldview. His politics was fueled by emotion, identity, and vision. A vision of a new India that stands proud, self-reliant, and respected on the world stage. When Trump and Modi met, there was undeniable warmth in public. Smiles, hugs, and powerful speeches praising each other's leadership. But behind the closed doors of diplomacy, the tone was different. Trump admired Modi's popularity and the way he connected with millions, something Trump himself deeply valued. Yet he also saw Modi as a leader who could be pressured, a potential ally who might bend to America's strategic and economic goals. Trump's calculation was simple. India needed U.S. technology, defense, and investment, and that dependency could be used as leverage. But Modi was not a leader to be cornered easily. He understood Trump's style, his unpredictability, his love for dominance, and his obsession with winning. So Modi crafted a counter-strategy, one that blended respect with resistance. In meetings, he was calm and measured. In public, he was generous with praise, often addressing Trump as a true friend of India. Yet beneath this diplomacy, Modi ensured that India's interests were never compromised. Every trade discussion, every defense talk, every policy alignment was calculated with precision. Trump, who often treated global leaders like junior partners, found in Modi someone who could not be easily swayed. This dynamic created a fascinating power equation. There was admiration, but also competition. There was friendship, but also friction. Trump would often press for trade concessions, urge India to buy more American goods, and align more closely with U.S. foreign policy interests. Modi, on the other hand, would agree to cooperation but never surrender India's autonomy. One key instance that highlighted this power clash was the negotiation over defense deals. Trump wanted India to purchase billions in American arms, promoting it as a sign of partnership. Modi, while willing to expand defense ties, also maintained India's policy of diversification, buying from Russia, France, and other countries to avoid overdependence. It was a signal that India valued friendship, but not submission. Another subtle form of power play was seen in global forums like the G20 and the UN. Trump would often dominate conversations, while Modi, through quiet diplomacy, gained support from emerging economies. Trump's loud assertiveness contrasted with Modi's composed confidence. It was a clash of styles, one led by the force of personality, the other by the power of strategy. Even in symbolic gestures, the competition was visible. When Modi hosted Trump at the Namaste Trump event in Ahmedabad, the spectacle drew global headlines. Yet it was also a statement that India could organize a diplomatic event as grand or even grander than America's Howdy Modi. The optics showed equality, not one leader hosting another, but two nations meeting as peers. In essence, this was never a relationship of dominance. It was a balancing act, two powerful leaders testing each other's boundaries while recognizing mutual need. Trump's pressure was real, but Modi's restraint was even stronger. Where Trump saw deals, Modi saw diplomacy. Where Trump sought advantage, Modi sought equilibrium. And in that delicate balance, the world saw the evolution of a partnership defined not by fear or force, but by firmness and mutual respect. Trade, the lifeline of modern diplomacy, became one of the most intense battlegrounds between Donald Trump and Narendra Modi. While both leaders publicly praised each other and celebrated their friendship, the reality behind the scenes was a high-stakes economic chess match. Trump, with his hardline America First policy, sought to reduce America's trade deficit at any cost. Modi, with his Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat self-reliant India vision, aimed to strengthen domestic industries and protect India's economic sovereignty. These two philosophies were bound to collide, and when they did, it created one of the most challenging phases in U.S.-India trade relations. Trump had a reputation for being an aggressive negotiator, one who viewed international trade deals not as partnerships, but as competitions. He often complained that the U.S. was being treated unfairly by other countries and that India, in particular, imposed high tariffs on American goods. In his speeches, Trump would cite examples like Harley-Davidson motorcycles and U.S. agricultural exports, accusing India of creating barriers to American products. His tone was blunt, even confrontational. He wanted India to open its markets wider, reduce import duties, and give American businesses the upper hand. For Modi, this was a delicate situation. India had long maintained protective trade policies to shield its developing industries, support local farmers, and promote domestic manufacturing. Simply giving in to Trump's demands would have meant undermining the very foundation of a Make in India, a policy Modi had championed as the symbol of India's economic independence. Yet Modi also knew that the U.S. was a key strategic partner, and a trade conflict could have broader geopolitical consequences. Thus, India adopted a calculated approach: engage, negotiate, but never compromise on core national interests. The first major flashpoint came in 2019 when Trump revoked India's preferential trade status under the Generalized System of Preferences, GSP. This program had allowed certain Indian exports to enter the U.S. market duty-free. By removing this status, Trump effectively increased costs for Indian exporters and sent a message that Washington wanted a fairer deal. The decision was a clear display of economic pressure. Many in the international community saw it as a test of India's resolve. Would Modi bow to U.S. demands or push back? Modi's response was diplomatic but firm. India did not retaliate with harsh countermeasures immediately. Instead, it initiated fresh trade talks, emphasizing that India's market of over 1 billion people represented a huge opportunity for American businesses. Behind the scenes, Indian negotiators worked tirelessly to stabilize the situation, ensuring that the U.S. didn't escalate matters further. Modi's strategy was simple: absorb the shock, maintain dialogue, and gradually realign India's trade policies in a way that strengthened self-reliance without isolating global partners. At the same time, India began diversifying its trade relationships. Modi sought deeper ties with the European Union, Japan, and Southeast Asian nations, reducing dependence on any single partner. This was a silent but strategic move. While Trump used tariffs as leverage, India used partnerships as balance. It showed that India would not be cornered economically, even by a global superpower. Interestingly, despite the friction, trade between the two nations continued to grow. U.S. companies saw India as a lucrative market, especially in technology, energy, and defense sectors. American oil exports to India surged, and tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Apple deepened their presence in the Indian market. This paradox of rising tensions yet expanding economic ties reflected the complexity of Trump-Modi relations. They were rivals in negotiation, but allies in ambition. Trump's economic pressure also had an unintended consequence. It accelerated India's push toward economic reform. Under Modi, India began reducing certain tariffs, encouraging foreign investment, and promoting startup innovation to boost competitiveness. The tension, in many ways, became a catalyst for change. It forced India to evolve faster and stronger. Through all of this, Modi never allowed the narrative to turn into one of subservience. India's media and public diplomacy maintained a consistent message. India sought partnership, not dependence. Modi's calm and composed handling of Trump's trade aggression contrasted sharply with Trump's fiery rhetoric. It was a display of two leadership styles, one loud and transactional, the other patient and strategic. In the end, what played out on the economic stage was far more than a dispute over tariffs or exports. It was a test of sovereignty, resilience, and leadership. Trump's pressure was real and relentless, but Modi's resistance was calculated and silent. Every tariff, every policy shift, every negotiation was part of a greater struggle, not just for better trade terms, but for India's place in the global economic order. Energy has always been at the heart of India's economic strategy, and during Donald Trump's presidency, it became a powerful instrument of pressure and persuasion. The United States under Trump had one clear agenda: to isolate Iran economically and politically. Trump's administration reimposed sanctions on Tehran after withdrawing from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. For most countries, this was a straightforward geopolitical issue. But for India, it was an intricate web of national interest, diplomacy, and energy dependency. For decades, Iran had been one of India's most reliable oil suppliers. The relationship was not merely transactional. It was built on strategic trust and regional cooperation. He diversified procurement and boosted India's own defense production under the Make in India initiative. Rather than simply importing, Modi sought technology transfer, co-production, and local manufacturing, ensuring that every deal also strengthened India's domestic industry. China's aggressive behavior along the border and in the South China Sea further reinforced the strategic convergence between Trump and Modi. When tensions flared between India and China in Ladakh in 2020, the U.S. publicly supported India's right to defend its sovereignty. This marked a significant geopolitical moment. Two democracies, once distant, now aligned in both words and strategy against a common challenge. Yet, through all of this, Modi maintained a careful equilibrium. He welcomed U.S. cooperation but avoided becoming a pawn in Washington's rivalry with Beijing. He engaged with multiple powers, participating in the BRICS with Russia and China, while also leading initiatives within the Quad. This multifaceted diplomacy reflected a deeper truth. India's goal was not to be an ally of the West, but a leader of the global South with the confidence to work alongside any power when interests aligned. Defense outreach, though laced with transactional undertones, ultimately elevated India's global military stature. And Modi, through calm negotiation and precise diplomacy, transformed Trump's pressure into partnership. The Indo-Pacific strategy thus became more than a containment plan. It became a stage for India's emergence as a decisive, respected voice in global security. Few moments in recent diplomatic history have captured global attention, quite like the Howdy Modi event in Houston, Texas, and the Namaste Trump rally in Ahmedabad, India. These were not just political gatherings. They were spectacles of soft power, symbolism, and strategy. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump appeared together before tens of thousands of cheering crowds, the world witnessed more than camaraderie. It was a calculated display of influence, partnership, and national pride. Each leader knew the value of public perception, and together they orchestrated moments that would redefine how India and the United States viewed each other. The Howdy Modi event in September 2019 was unprecedented. Held at Houston's NRG Stadium, it drew over 50,000 Indian Americans. One of the largest political gatherings ever hosted by a foreign leader in the United States. Modi's charisma electrified the crowd, but the real surprise came when President Trump walked onto the stage hand in hand with the Indian Prime Minister. For a sitting U.S. president to share the stage with a foreign leader in such a way was extraordinary. Trump's appearance wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic. He was courting the powerful Indian American voter base ahead of the 2020 election, while also showcasing his administration's closeness with India. Modi, on the other hand, understood the deeper significance. Standing beside the most powerful man in the world on American soil was a testament to India's rising global stature. As he addressed the crowd with his trademark energy, Modi spoke not just as a national leader, but as a global statesman. His words celebrated the shared values of democracy, freedom, progress that unite India and America. When he famously said, "Ab ki bar, Trump Sarkar," echoing Trump's campaign slogan, the audience erupted. It was a moment of political theater that perfectly blended diplomacy with personal chemistry. But beneath the smiles and applause, there was strategy. Modi's move was a masterstroke in global diplomacy. He positioned India as a strong, confident nation that engages with world powers on equal terms. Trump, too, used the event to project himself as a global dealmaker, comfortable on the world stage alongside influential leaders. Both men benefited politically. Modi gained visibility and support among the Indian diaspora, while Trump strengthened his image among conservative voters who admired strong leadership. Then came Namaste Trump, held in February 2020 at the newly built Motra Stadium in Ahmedabad, the largest cricket stadium in the world. This was India's response to Houston. A grand welcome that blended tradition, culture, and spectacle. Over 100,000 people packed the stadium to greet Trump and the First Lady, waving flags and chanting slogans as folk dancers and musicians filled the air with color and rhythm. The visuals were breathtaking. Two leaders waving from an open car through streets lined with flowers, elephants, and enthusiastic crowds. For Trump, who valued pageantry and optics, this was a dream come true. It was diplomacy as performance, every camera angle capturing the warmth of India's hospitality and the strength of the U.S.-India bond. But again, Modi's intent ran deeper. The Namaste Trump event was not just a welcome, it was a statement. India was showing the world that it could host global leaders with unmatched grandeur, projecting itself as a confident power that commands respect on the international stage. What made these events truly remarkable was how they transcended politics. They were cultural moments, reminders of the deep people-to connection between India and the United States. The Indian American community, which once viewed its identity as a balancing act between two nations, now saw unity in pride. The energy of these events symbolized a new era where India was no longer a secondary partner, but a key player in shaping global narratives. Even more telling was how both leaders used these events to further their respective national goals. Trump leveraged the optics to push trade deals, defense cooperation, and his America First narrative. Modi, meanwhile, used the same stage to promote India's vision of partnership, progress, and self-reliance. It was a diplomatic dance, one where both men gained without conceding. In the background, analysts noted how the optics of mutual admiration masked underlying tensions over tariffs, immigration, and policy differences. Yet neither leader allowed those issues to overshadow the image of unity. What mattered was perception, and perception in politics is power. Howdy Modi and Namaste Trump became twin milestones, two events that showcased not just a friendship between leaders, but a transformation in how India and America saw each other. From cautious cooperation to confident collaboration, these moments marked India's emergence on the world stage, not as a spectator, but as a star. Behind all the headlines, the handshakes, and the high-stakes negotiations, the essence of the Trump-Modi dynamic was never about domination or submission. It was about respect. Both leaders, despite their contrasting styles, understood one fundamental truth. In the New World Order, power no longer belongs solely to those who command, but to those who stand firm with dignity. The Trump-Modi relationship was the perfect embodiment of this principle, a story not of coercion, but of calculated cooperation, not of pressure, but of poise. Donald Trump was unlike any U.S. president India had ever dealt with. His approach to foreign policy was transactional, blunt, and unapologetically self-serving. He believed that every relationship, even with allies, had to produce measurable benefits for America. He was a businessman in the world of diplomacy. Shoulders mattered, deals mattered, optics mattered. And yet, when it came to Modi, Trump found himself dealing with a leader who understood the language of strength just as fluently as the language of friendship. Narendra Modi, on the other hand, was no ordinary counterpart. This was not just a story of two leaders. It was the story of two nations learning to deal with each other as equals. A story of evolving partnerships, competing interests, and shared aspirations. And in the end, when the cameras faded and the applause quieted, what remained was not the echo of pressure, but the steady rhythm of respect. Respect earned, not demanded. Respect built, not bought. Ladies and gentlemen, when we peel back the layers of diplomacy, ego, and strategy, we uncover the true essence of the Trump-Modi relationship. Mutual respect built through strength, not submission. Donald Trump's pressure was never about breaking India. It was about testing it. And Narendra Modi's response proved that India no longer bows, it balances. What emerged from those years was a new blueprint for global leadership, one where nations engage not as superiors and subordinates, but as equals with shared ambitions. Trump saw in Modi a leader who could not be dictated to. Modi saw in Trump a partner who could be reasoned with. The result was not confrontation, but calibration. Not division, but dialogue. This story reminds the world that diplomacy is not about who speaks louder, but who stands firmer. It's about transforming moments of pressure into pillars of partnership. Trump's America learned that India's handshake carries the weight of pride, while Modi's India showed that real power lies in quiet confidence, not loud submission. And so, as history looks back at the Trump-Modi era, it will not see two leaders locked in rivalry, but two nations rising through realism, bound not by dominance, but by dignity, determination, and deep mutual respect.